Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another Brewer Report. Thank you for joining us. As always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Liking our videos or commenting, sharing definitely helps us with the algorithm when it comes to the YouTube platform. You may also hear us on a different platform, but for YouTube, it's all about the likes and the comments and the shares so that we can be introduced to more people in this or on this online world and just continue to gain our community. So today we are talking about beans and the benefits of beans. And yes, I know beans, some call it the musical fruit. The more you eat them, the more you toot, maybe. I don't know. That's what
Mhm.
I heard once before. But it's a very it's a very healthy food. And actually, I want to read something that I found very interesting. They said the most comprehensive analysis of diet and cancer ever performed was published by the American Institute for Cancer Research. And they said, or they were sifting through some of half a million studies, nine independent research teams from around the world created a landmark scientific consensus report reviewed by 21 of the top cancer researchers. And the summary was that eating whole grains and legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, or lentils with every meal, and they emphasized that every meal was the key, not every week or every day. They want you to eat beans with every meal. So we have to figure out how we can do that. Today, we will hopefully give you some tips on how you may can do that. But right now, let's move on to really the science of beans. In essence, we'll talk about how it may can lower your cholesterol, maybe help with diabetes, maybe even help you lose some weight, and of course, maybe help with certain cancers. But my dad will take it away when it comes right now to the science of beans. I guess we're gonna what? We're gonna start with chickpeas, lentils. What are we
We're
starting
gonna
with?
let's start with Furman
Okay, start
on
with
the
Furman.
digestive health of
Okay,
beans.
okay,
And
let's go.
okay, so beans slow help you slow your digestive process. That's what Dr. Furman has said. It goes back to G bombs, greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, plus nuts. So Furman says that what it does is because beans are so heavy in their fiber and etc., when they hit your digestive system, the enzymes in your stomach really cannot quite digest all of the starch and stuff that's going in the beans. And so beans slowly pass through your system. And as they slowly pass through your system, they basically create something called a fertilizer for the probiotics in your system so that as beans go through your system, because they are not digested as fast, 90% of the calories in the beans pass through your system, but they leave behind this fertilizer for the probiotics of the foods coming that you eat, later or during the process. And in essence, what happens is it's called a second meal effect. And Dr. Greger also talks about this. And so that second meal effect helps those other foods that you eat digest better and it helps with the absorption of the nutrients in the other foods. So now, so people say, well, why would the scientists, nutrition scientists say eat beans 3 times a day? Now you know why.
Or with
Because
every meal.
that breakfast that you eat, that lunch
Yeah.
that you eat, that dinner that you eat, bingo,
Mhm. Yes.
beans helps you absorb the nutrients in those foods better. Who knew?
And what you're saying, Daddy, it's not what you eat?
It's what you absorb, right?
Yes.
So that's what it gets into. So now let's work our way through the beans. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So what are we
So,
starting with?
okay.
Lentils, chickpeas?
Yeah, let's start with lentils.
Okay.
Okay. All right. They are one of the most iron-rich legumes. And remember, iron is important. Okay.
Especially for women.
Um, and then the shock of all is lentils are the highest antioxidant bean. That's
And
a shock.
chickpeas, yes. And chickpeas is number two, and lima
Yeah.
beans is last on the list.
Yeah, lima beans is the last one.
Right.
So, so when you, so I was shocked at that. I had no idea. But so lentils are good for heart health, lowering cholesterol, and cancer prevention. So that was the big surprise. Then chickpeas, blood pressure, also beneficial for what they call the post-meal blood sugar effect, and so it increases insulin sensitivity and compared to other high carb foods. Kidney beans, a big surprise there. Not so much a surprise, but kidney beans have a lot of folate in them, and so they're good for women. If you're pregnant, you need folate for your baby or for the fetal neurological development.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
very
really need
important.
to add some
Yeah.
kidney beans, and of course, then black beans are also help lower blood sugar and also a good also high in folate. So between if you're pregnant, you probably need to be eating kidney beans and black beans because of the folate. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because they're so high in folate. And of course, soybeans, as evidence that they have isoflavonoids. Now we're going to talk more about soybeans later, but soybeans have isoflavonoids, which also reduce cancer risk. And then pinto beans lower cholesterol. They're high in copper, which is good for your immune system. And to be very frank, if you want pretty skin, eat some pinto beans
Oh,
because it
well,
produces
hallelujah.
helps to produce skin pigment. How about
And
that?
I love me some pinto beans. Good.
Roll with pintos.
Well, you know that. I love me a good bean burrito.
Yes, Lordy. And then navy beans increases HDL and lowers LDL in terms of cholesterol. And also, allegedly, it also will reduce your circumference. So those are some of the benefits of beans in overall. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then of course, peanuts. We've already talked about peanuts. Peanuts are a bean. And so
Yes.
peanuts, as we've already said, people who eat peanuts have a lower death risk
And now we know
of
why.
many causes. So we've
Now we
already
know
talked
why.
about that. Okay.
So yeah, and there's a lot of great recipes with lentils. My mom actually makes a great lentil soup. You can make that for yourself. I love a good lentil chili. There's some good recipes online for that. You can have hummus to get some of your chickpeas in, maybe have it with some carrots or some celery, some bell peppers, and you get all your nutrients there. So, just, because at the top of the show, we talked about having beans with every meal. So, these are different
Hmm.
ways you make and do that.
Hmm.
You can even have, uh, my dad likes beans. Sometimes with his salads, he's even put it on top of a pizza. He's put chickpeas on top of a pizza.
Yep.
Obviously, I mentioned burritos. You can have bean tacos. I mean, the list goes on. So, beans are something honestly you can easily incorporate in your diet. All right, so what's
Absolutely. Now,
next?
talk about gas.
Yeah, like I said, it's a musical fruit.
So here's the key for beans. Uh, what the doctors are saying, especially Furman said, listen, yeah, they're high in fiber and they slowly digest, as we've already talked about. He says you start
Yes.
with 1 teaspoon until your body builds up and becomes used to the fiber and the slow digestion of the beans, and then work your way up from there. That's one thing. And the other thing too is how do you prepare beans? First of all, there is a certain doctor that talks about this that we won't name, but he says that you got lectins and all this stuff in beans, and that's an anti-nutrient.
And
Well,
he's
that's
very
true,
popular. Yeah.
and it's very popular video, but it's nonsense. Even in fact, when you get on the internet now and you Google it, even AI will tell you it's nonsense. So what do? If you buy dried beans, I like dried black beans, for example. I put dried black beans and I will soak them overnight and then cook them. But what you don't do in order to make sure you don't have any lectins in your beans is that the water that you soak your beans in, you discard that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you cook your beans. You cook it in a different, if you're going to boil them, you cook them in a different pot of water. And as long as you cook them at least 15, 20 minutes, you're good. There's no problem with the lectins. So
Yeah,
that's
there's a whole
important.
process. There's a whole process, and it's funny how people, I don't know, they like to somehow treat vegetables, or I don't know, put it at a. It's like they're more critical of vegetables than other foods. But the point is, you have people who say they may not want to eat certain things because they're nervous about what it could do to their bodies, but then they'll go and eat Doritos or something. So
Yeah.
there's just a
Mhm.
certain criticism when it comes to vegetables, but it's like you have people who will clean their chicken or any kind of meat a certain way. So it's the same process with beans. You may have to prepare it a certain way in order to eliminate, like you just said, the lectins. It's so that's any food. So don't say, "Oh, I won't eat beans because of a lectin." Well, now you know how to get rid of that. It's the same process when you eat certain other foods. You may have to clean it a certain way, to prevent whatever issue that may have. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about one of my favorite beans. One of my favorite beans. Now
Oh,
this,
is
before
it
I
your
tell
favorite
you what it
bean?
is, let's lead into this with a story. This is a true story.
Yeah.
I had a friend, I was in church, and one of my friends came up and she said, David, I've got to go in for surgery. I'm 50% blocked in one artery and 90% blocked in the other one. And the doctor said, I got to have surgery within the next 6 weeks. She said, is there anything you can do? Because I'm terrified. I said, well, I take these vitamins called X, the letter X, Stin Life, which are made in one of my favorite places. The same place that makes Manuka honey is made in New Zealand. And I said they have this supplement called Cardio Cleanse, and then of course they also have omega 3. I said, well, look, take these, and God bless you. I hope this, I hope you don't have to do it, but take these and try it. So she came back in about 5 weeks and she said, my doctor wanted to know what in the world I was doing because I was 50% on the
Wow.
90% side and clear on the 50% side. And I no longer have to have surgery. So I said,
Wow.
okay, let me take a hard look at this cardio cleanse. It's
Wow.
no longer called that now. It's called CX8 by Extend. And so I looked at it and saw this enzyme inside in the supplement called nattokinase. And
Mm-hmm.
nattokinase is the enzyme in natto beans. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. And natto beans are fermented soybeans. And I said, when am I going to get that? So I go to the Asian market and I said, my God, Asians eat this stuff like candy. This huge section of natto beans are
Oh
in
my
the
goodness.
Asian market. I said, okay.
And y'all can
So
see it right
natto,
now.
again, cleans out your arteries.
Yes.
Who knew?
Amazing.
And
But
so
the key,
now,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, just
So
real quick.
now,
The key, just real quick. The key though is still go to the doctor to ensure your arteries are clear. So don't just take the pill or eat noddle beans and think, oh, my arteries are clear. Always still get your checkup at the doctor. But go ahead.
right, that's good editorial.
Yeah.
If in fact, if you are on blood thinners or anything like that, then you clearly have to talk to your doctor before you start a not bean diet.
Right.
Okay.
Because the key to
And
your
you can
story
only
is
eat
she
like
knew.
one pack a day.
Right. Because the key to
Right.
your story is she went to the doctor and knew she had a blockage. Some people don't know they have a blockage. So
Right.
the key is always check your body.
Absolutely.
See what's going
Now
on there.
here's the
Yeah.
other kicker. for natto beans. So what I do with natto beans is I include it in my smoothies. Now, and I also can eat them, but let me be clear. I'm from the South, and I used to eat okra. I still eat okra.
Y-
And sometimes that okra
Yes.
will come out slimy. Well, natto beans
Sometimes.
are slimy.
Oh, that's an understatement. I call it a slimy monster.
They're slimy. So you eat
But
one
I
pack a
can eat it
day.
though. It's no big deal to me.
It's an acquired taste. Of course, the natto bean packs come with a soy sauce and mustard, and
Yeah.
so to kind of make sure it's more palatable. But what I do is I just take them out of the pack and put them in my smoothies. I'll throw 2 packs in my blender. You should eat no more than one a day, 1 pack a day. But natto is an elixir. That's all I can say, and it's great for your cardiovascular health. That's the bottom line. And it also, because it's fermented, also adds probiotics and prebiotics to your system.
And let me just say real
So
quick how I know the Asians or Japanese traditionally prepare it because when I started getting them, I was curious to know how to eat it. I now put it in my smoothies because then you really don't have to deal with the sliminess. But the way that Asians have prepared it, they put it on top of rice with the soy sauce and the mustard sauce that my dad mentioned that's included in the pack. And then they sprinkle a little bit of green onion on top. So that's a
that's a
way
good
you
way to eat
can,
it.
yeah, that's a way you
Mhm.
can consume it. Yeah, that's their
Right. And if you
kind of
can't find out,
recipe.
you get them from an Asian market. And if you're in a food desert, you can get freeze-dried versions online. Although the views are kind of mixed on those, but you can work your way through the ratings of them. Uh, you can get it in a powdered version as well. So, but they clearly are in your Asian markets. Like I said, Asians eat them like candy. They eat natto beans.
Yes.
I was shocked. Like I said, I was shocked to see how many natto beans with. Now we get the black natto beans,
Yes.
which are, black soybeans are a little bit healthier than the regular soybeans. In fact, they use them for medicinal purposes, or they're actually getting some medicines out of them. So, and we're going to get more into soybeans in general because uh, I use
That too has
edamame
been
beans.
maligned. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I'm sorry, go
edamame
ahead.
beans are part of our diet,
Yes.
and of course, the biggie there is breast cancer.
Mm. But it's funny you say that because we were talking about how certain plant-based foods can be maligned from beans, and definitely soy has been maligned. And I guess you'll get into that. But breast cancer, yes. Go ahead with the edamame.
Right. And what they found was that soybeans have phytoestrogens in them. And so phytoestrogen as opposed to estrogen, and the concern was if it has estrogen and you have estrogen negative or positive breast cancer, that in essence, the estrogen in the soybeans would cause cancer to grow. And what precipitated that was a study with rats or rodents. And when they gave them soybeans, their cancer tumors grew. But what they determined was we're not rats. Okay. I keep telling so that's why you have to have human
Oh my
trials. We're not
goodness.
rats. And when they gave women soybeans, it had the opposite effect. In other words, it
Mm.
reduced the risk of cancer and the effects of cancer. In fact, they found in some studies that women who consume soy, especially the earlier in their lives, the earlier they got soy into their system, the less the risk of breast cancer. And that's why Asian women have, or Japanese women especially, have a much, much lower risk of breast cancer than American women. And when they come here, they basically start to manifest the same breast cancer rate because of the high fat, saturated fat, high carcinogen foods, etc. So soy foods were considered to be anti-cancer because of the phytoestrogen. It's
Right, because
plant-based,
right, there's a lot of myths with soy. And we're knocking that down right now with what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Y-
it's a lot of
y-
misinformation out there. A lot of misinformation out there. In fact, they said the earlier you start, that's why the Japanese introduce soy early into their children's diet, and the earlier the better, and the lower risk of cancer. I mean, they have one of the lowest cancer rates in the world, period. So because they eat soy.
So, real quick though, yes, soy has a lot of misinformation, but the key is to still consume whole what is it, whole food soy. Like you don't want processed soy
Oh
too
no, no,
much.
no, no.
Yeah.
Because when you see soy isolates and all this other craziness, run. I buy whole soy milk. Everything's got to be whole.
Mm-hmm.
Natto is a whole bean. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, edamame is a whole bean. And so only eat whole food soy, period. So
So for men, a lot of men avoid soy because they feel somehow maybe their chest will become like women's, like a woman's chest.
it's not.
I
It is
can't, you
like
can't,
I said, it's a
you can't say
phytoestrogen.
certain words on YouTube, by the way. That's why I'm saying it that way. But yeah, they fear that.
No,
Yeah. So let's attack that because I hear that all the time.
no, because it's phytoestrogen. It's not
Okay.
estrogen. It's not
Okay.
gonna enter your body and make you and have you, grow breasts. No, it's not gonna do
And it
that.
helps men with their prostate, correct?
And it's excellent for prostate. If that's the
Right.
case, I mean, Japanese men eat soy all the time,
Yeah. I'm telling you,
and they have
I'm
lower rates
telling
of
you.
cancer and everything else.
I'm telling you, go online, you will hear a lot of these guys who are all about their health. They'll say, "Oh, but I avoid that soy. I avoid
Yeah,
that
now
soy." You
I
hear
do
that all the
see
time.
you do see labels that says no soy
Yes.
on
It's
certain
been
foods, but
yeah.
see the problem is, yeah, there are certain if you have certain isolated versions of soy, just like everything else, it could have a deleterious effect. But if you have whole soy is the key word. Whole soy. Eat whole soy foods, period. Whole soy drinks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Okay.
eat isolated soy. It goes back to what we were talking about, what we have talked about a lot, and that is do not isolate the nutrients. Okay. Eat the whole food.
Mm-hmm.
Nature knows what it's doing.
Yeah, and that brings me to my point before we go to the next topic. Nature has a certain intelligence. It knows how to move within your body. Like we're going to talk about how beans, my dad will break down the science of beans and when it comes to diabetes and all these different things, it just has a certain knowingness when it enters your body of what cells to protect and what cells to destroy, even. So, yeah, that's the key. Eat whole foods. Nature
Whole food.
knows what to do.
Let's
All
talk
right,
about
so
this
what's next?
population study.
Yes. Okay.
Let's roll with
But
that one.
with the
Yeah.
Latino, what they call it the Hispanic paradox. Apparently, they live longer than most people, and is it because in the Latino culture
Because
they
they
love
have
beans
their diet is very high in
with
beans.
beans?
They
Yes.
eat 3 to 4 times more beans than the average American.
But I
Period.
don't think they're doing it because they thought they would live longer. It's just
No, but that's
they
but
love
that's
the
their
beans.
lifestyle.
Right. That's their
So
diet. Like, yeah,
the longest
cuisine.
living people in America are Asian Americans, followed by Hispanic Americans, followed by white Americans, followed by blacks and Native Americans. That's
Mm,
the Hispanic paradox. And
hmm.
so we thought that you were half Mexican. We were born in San Diego, you know how that worked, and
Yes.
how much
Yes.
you
Yes.
love Chipotle,
Well,
and
I
how
love
much you
Mexican
love your
food.
Mexican food.
Yes.
Well,
I
it
could eat it
turns
every
out
day.
when you go to Chipotle, what's the
Or
mix?
or any Mexican restaurant,
Now,
not
any
just
Mexican
Chipotle.
place.
Yeah.
But I love Chipotle. I just bought me some Chipotle today. When I got it, and we're gonna talk about another combination in this. I'll let you roll with that. But I got my Chipotle plant-powered bowl, and one of the bean sources in that bowl is something called sofritas, which is basically tofu, which is a bean, soybean, and the Mexican spices.
And you get your
Okay.
black beans. Yeah.
And the black beans and what, the pinto beans?
Yeah, there's pinto
Right.
beans too. You can get both at
You
Chipotle.
get but both. And so again, our Latino brothers and sisters eat 3 times as much beans as we do. And oh, by the way, Chipotle was off the chain on the stock market. I'm gonna give a little tip here. They went to $3,200 a share,
Mm,
which is and so they did a 50-to-1 split on their share so people could afford to buy Chipotle stock. It was down about $65. That was one of the largest splits in the history of the stock market. Again, Mexican grill. What can I
right.
say?
And obviously Latino culture is not just Mexican, because even with Cuban culture and Peruvian culture, I'm here in New York, rice and beans are heavy on the menus here as well, like outside of even just Mexican cuisine. So it's just, beans are just a significant part, it seems, of most of the Hispanic culture, um, or cultures, I should say, because they're not a monolith. But yes, and speaking of rice and beans, for those of you who are concerned about your protein, particularly if you're on a certain weight loss journey, or maybe you're a bodybuilder or trying to gain muscle, actually, when you eat rice with beans, that is how you can get your complete protein. You get all of the 9 amino acids. So, as we've said, or my dad's saying is, it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. So bringing those two groups together, those food groups together, gives you your complete protein. And preferably with the rice, you want to have brown rice, because then you can get more of
Right,
your
right. You want
fiber
brown
and
rice.
things like
You
that.
want the white rice. Go with the brown.
Yes. So that's a tip for those who are thinking about your protein. You don't have to have the chicken or the steak to get what you feel is your full protein. With beans, you eat it with rice, you have your complete protein.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, one of the things as a pre-workout meal, if you want to, load up, get you some, like you said, get you some beans, black beans, or whatever beans you want,
Mhm.
and some brown rice. And also, I always throw in some arugula, because arugula is good with nitric oxide. We talked about that earlier. And so there you go. You got your complete protein. You got your nitric oxide to get your blood flow going, etc. So that's a good combination right there. Brown rice, beans, and some arugula. How about that?
Yes. Yes. In fact, I'm planning to make me a good rice and bean recipe this week. So,
Well, I got you beat.
uh,
My Chipotle bowl is waiting on me.
see, now you're about to make me go to Chipotle after this. Anyway.
I said to memorialize this segment on beans, I went and got me a plant power based
Oh my
Chipotle bowl.
goodness. All right. So next up, let's talk about, or do we want to go a little further on beans and diabetes?
Well, these about diabetes, I think we kind of touched on that already because of the lower glycemic index effect of the fact that they're going through your system much slower. So your
Yes.
body's not going to absorb the calories, the starch, the sugars, etc., as fast, which will drive up your blood sugar levels.
But I
And
did want
also
to
the
share,
fiber.
yeah, right. But
Yeah.
let's share a little history though with beans when it comes to diabetes. Apparently the history is doctors pre-diabetes medicine would actually use beans to treat people who had diabetes. So, that's quite interesting. I thought just
Right, because
interesting trivia.
they were following that science. Hmm.
Right. It's just a knowingness at the time. That doesn't mean don't take your diabetes medicine right now, but always talk to your doctor. But the key is to incorporate beans into your diet if you are indeed diabetic or you're trying to prevent diabetes. So anything else, or are we wrapping this up? I know we talked on the cancer already as well.
Right.
Um,
It's like you said with the diabetes, it's a second meal effect
yes.
in terms of the fact that it slows down the absorption of all those calories and things of that sort, and it increases the, uh, in other words, it lowers the glycemic effect. And so I think that
Hmm.
that's the key as we talked about it. But and then now you understand why they say eat beans with every meal. Because if you eat a high
Yes.
sugar breakfast, guess what? It's going to spike your blood sugar. But if
Hmm.
you put some beans in there, I don't know how you figure that out without a
It may
smoothie or
slow
something
it
like
down a
that.
little. I don't know.
You got to
Yeah.
figure that out. We're gonna have to come up with a breakfast. Well, they have breakfast burritos, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And
That's
they
very
have beans,
popular. Yeah.
and they have
But
beans, right?
you can put beans in it, but a lot of times people put egg,
Okay,
things
I'm
like
not
that.
talking about that kind of burrito.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
When I think burrito, I think beans. I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, you can get some beans in some kind
Absolutely.
of burrito or something in the morning.
Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and
And
there you go.
avocado,
An avocado.
beans, avocado. Again, the Mexican culture, you can have really a lot of healthy meals with Mexican cuisine. Beans, avocado, and pico de gallo, which will give you your lycopene with tomatoes and
Right.
onions and cilantro,
Right. And of
all
course, your
that.
favorite salsa and sauce is El Pato.
Oh, I do like El Pato. That's a
El
brand, yeah.
Pato. El Pato.
That's
I,
a
I,
brand.
I add El Pato. In fact, my bean soup that I have kale, black beans, onions, and El Pato, which
Yeah,
is the what is a salsa slant sauce, tomato
yeah,
sauce.
yeah.
And good luck finding it because I tell you, they sell out so quick. Good
Y-
Lord.
Yeah, and people want to sell it at high prices online. That's why I was going to tell my dad, go ahead and ship me some over here because they do sell out. But that's a popular brand, by the way, for those who don't know. It's really popular in California. I think that's where they're based. But yeah, beans. But one another thing with beans, real quick, we didn't mention is osteoporosis. Apparently, it can help with that. Maybe bringing a little cushion to your bones.
Yeah. I mean,
That's another study that came out. So there's this. We could be here all day when it
you can
comes
talk all
to
day about
beans.
beans, but the bottom
Yeah,
line is that they are healthy. They're good for
yeah,
you for so many different things in terms of cancer, in terms of diabetes, in terms of protein, like you said, with rice, brown rice
yes.
preferably.
Hmm.
Um, and so and it also because of the second meal effect, it basically, like you said, it lowers the glycemic index. And so it's now you know why people who eat beans live longer. I mean, our Latino brothers and sisters
Shout out to
live a
y'all.
long time because they basically eat a lot of beans.
And like they said, that's not to be misinterpreted. There are health issues within the Latino community as well, like any community. But based off of that study, that's what it revealed, and it points to the beans. So
Absolutely. And then when, of course, our Asian brothers and sisters live a long time because they're into the soybean realm. Okay.
natto
And,
beans, yes,
and natto beans. And natto beans, it means they have much lower cardiovascular problems than we do.
and tofu.
And tofu.
Amazing, amazing.
Amazing. The effects of
Yes.
beans.
Yes. And look, let's not forget about our culture, black folks. We just got to stop putting the ham hocks in it. But
Right.
we love our we have some good red beans and rice from New
Yeah,
Orleans. Come
well,
on now.
right.
Cuz even look, the Carolinas, we got something for good luck, the Hoppin' Johns. You can
That's
get
true.
your
And like you said,
rice and
peas
peas.
are in the bean category.
Yeah,
No doubt about that. In fact,
right.
we talked about that earlier, how peas are in the bean category. And so we uh yeah, peas are because they're particularly high in vitamin K, fat soluble vitamins necessary for blood clotting, and they're also high in protein and also good for, in fact, pea protein is comparable to whey protein in terms of its protein content. So peas are
Right.
definitely a part of the bean category.
Right. And that's a part of our cuisine as African Americans. And it's just, we have to, you can still have your soul food, but there's a way to eat it in a healthier way. Don't put too much of the high fat meats inside. Just eat it vegan style. And there you go. We have our recipes when it comes to the beans and the rice and getting our complete
Yeah, it was
proteins.
black eyed peas and rice.
Black eyed peas and rice, field peas and rice. And
Right.
shout out to New
Your grandmama
Orleans.
Brown used to do a lot of field peas.
Right. And shout out to New Orleans with the red beans and rice.
That's
So there
right.
you go. We got it. All right, y'all. Yes, that's our show for today. The key or the theme is very clear. Eat your beans, not just every day, not just every week, really with every meal. Hopefully, we've given you some good tips on how you can do that. Put it in your smoothies, get some hummus, make some burritos, make a soup, make a chili. There's all kinds of ways you can eat beans. And that's it. That's our that's our theme for today. That's our message for today. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Get us out there in that algorithm, get this community growing, and we'll see you next week. Peace.